Yeah, buddy. Well, that's enough of that. What's up, everybody? This is Paul, author of Heal.Thy.Man Method, Men's Wellbeing Guide, Yoga Guide, and a sleepy mother hoo ha. Because it this at the time of this recording, we just had uh daylight savings, which is springing forward. I'm happy for this, but whatever, it is what it is. And there's certain expectations I can have of the spring and expectations I can have of all different types of things. And that's exactly what this live today is about. It's about expectations, called the slippery slope of expectations, and how they can control us and how we break free. So this whole thing came from a conversation I had with a friend of mine, John, and I posted about this. If you're on my social media on Instagram or Facebook, I think even TikTok, I posted about expectations in a short video. So I figured I'd take this time to expand it more. And expectations, whether they're from others or ourselves, can feel like a setup for frustration. I know it's been that way for me. I've expected things from someone or something, and it didn't work out. And then what happened? I got all flustered. I got all pissed. I was Captain Huff and Puff and whatnot. And I lose myself in the process. And this is what makes expectations a very slippery slope. So especially when I fail to communicate the expectations, because really when it comes down to it, when I really started diving into this, I was like, dang, what is it about expectations? And one of the things is that expectations are rarely communicated clearly. And when they go unmet, it creates this tension because there's assumptions and even broken relationships. Because I know for me, it's like I've heard in relationships like, you should know, Paul. You should know I'm feeling this way. I'm like, I'm stuttering. I'm like, so the reason why this topic matters is because when those expectations are unspoken or they're rigid, they can be just as destructive as any addiction. Yeah, I said it. It can be just as destructive as any addiction. The reason in our society, expectations is even in our minds place us in this trapped box, and it truly limits our authenticity and how we show up and who we are. So in this live over the next probably 8 minutes, I'm going to cover the hidden traps of expectations. I'm also going to cover the hidden traps of expectations in relationships, and as well as how we identify ourselves. Then also talk about how expectations create boxes, and then also talk to the steps to manage expectations in a healthier way. So let's talk first about the trap of expectations. What? Yes. Here's the thing. We expect things from people without communicating them. It's true. Chances are you probably did the same thing. You had an expectation of something, and when you got disappointed, you were like, what the heck? How come this didn't happen? And if you were to think about that situation and look back on it, you probably think like, oh, stuff. I failed to let this person know what the heck was going on, man. Damn. But the thing is, most people won't do that. Most people still be in there. Most people be hurt about it. They'll be resentful. And then because their expectations went unmet, that resentment builds, the frustration builds, and it causes unnecessary conflict. Think about it. If it's in the most common way I can think about this is either in relationships or career, social. I mean, it can really go a lot of different ways. But when there's that unmet resentment or that unmet expectation, it will cause unnecessary conflict. So, for example, when someone like I mentioned before, I used to hear in relationships all the time, you should read my mind, or you should know. And I would do the same thing. I don't want to put it off on my past girlfriends or my former wife. I did the same thing. That's why this resonates so much for me, because I would get pissed off at them because I'm like, yo, how did they know that I didn't want to get some booty on Saturday night, man? They should know that jump. Well, they didn't. Okay. I had to communicate that expectation. Now, also, the part of expectations, what makes this such a trap is that I can hold someone to a standard that they never agreed to. Okay. I could put someone up on this pedestal and they were like, yo, man, I didn't ask you to put me up that piece. I didn't ask you to put me there. So now I put a person up here. I'm expecting them to act a certain way or be a certain person, and it fails to happen. Now I'm Captain Huff and Puff again. Okay. Society places these expectations on men, women, races, careers, status, all these different types of things, and it shapes how we think we should show up. And you got if you follow my posts and stuff, you know how I feel about should. Should is shaming. So if you're using that in your language, please do your best to begin to eliminate it. So I mentioned before, like these expectations can create different boxes. Like for example, as a professional, do I have to fit into a mold that fits my true self, right? Or as a family member, as a person that carries my last name, how am I supposed to act? When I was younger, I was active as a Jehovah's Witness when I was a kid. Like there was a certain expectation I was supposed to act a certain way. Did it always work out? No. And it also created frustration again. Now, here's the thing. When I talk about, especially it's interesting I mentioned the example of being a Jehovah's Witness, because the thing that happens is when I fail to, or when I don't get caught in the trap of external expectations, I can put myself in a box of self-imposed limitations. And those self-imposed limitations, those cloud the way that blocks or dampens who I truly am. So when I create these personal experiences or expectations based on a norm or an upbringing or a cultural right or past experience, these expectations create my box. You feel me? So what happens is, and bless up, thank you for likes. If you like, share, subscribe. Listen, if you want to put a comment in here, something resonates with you, put a comment. I'll get back to it, or I'll acknowledge it on the live. But yeah, like, share, subscribe on the channel. But coming back to this here, these expectations, it's a box that we could put ourselves in, and that box can be rigid again because this comes into the way that we should show up. So the reason that this is dangerous is, as I mentioned, it limits our personal growth. It keeps us stuck in old roles, and that also in itself will bring frustration. Now, this box, and this is something that I've struggled with. And if you're the same, you can put your hand up and be like, "Amen." Whatever works for you, I'm completely open to it. But it created this self-judgment within myself, and I can be very hard on myself. So having myself in this box created this judgment of myself if I didn't meet these unrealistic expectations that I failed to even either create or communicate. Okay. Now, it can also disconnect me from and actually it has, being these expectations, man, they have disconnected me from my authentic self by forcing me to be someone to meet an expectation that was never communicated or met. Now, coming to this situation again, right? I talk about past relationships, and especially when it comes to past experiences. I've had these relationships where I've heard like, "Hey, you should know. Like I've told you this before, you should know." Blah blah blah. Now, having that past experience going into for other relationships, now I'm living off that past experience. Like, oh, jump. Well, what happened in this past thing? All right. Well, this is what she expected. Okay, maybe that's what this person expected, and then I do the wrong thing. Why is that, Paul? Well, because I never communicated with my partner, my girl, like, "Hey, what's the expectation you have of me? What is that?" So I want you to think when as I mentioned that, think about where in your life are you stuck in an expectation box? Is it work, relationship? Is it your personal life? And what parts of you do you suppress because you think you should, because of how you think you should show up? Okay. What part of yourself do you suppress because of how you think you should show up? Now, here's a couple things. Now, listen, it's one thing for me to tell you the problem. It's another thing for me to give you solutions. And I'm a solution oriented person. So I like to come to like some sort of resolution, find a way out or what have you. So this last couple minutes, I want to talk about the 4 steps that you could take to manage and break free of expectations. And the first one, I've been speaking about this whole 10 minutes so far. And this is about communicating clearly. If you have an expectation of someone, speak that jump. Speak it. Let a cat know. Say it. If you're unsure of someone's expectation of you, ask a mother who be like, yo, hey, what's the expectation you have of me? Like, I know for me right now, like if I'm talking to a woman, I'm telling them where I am right now. Right? Like I never used to do that before. I used to be like, well, no, I'm gonna tell you where I am so you know what to expect from me. There's no gray matter. It's like this is what it is. Now, the second step is challenge the box. Ask yourself, is this expectation that I have serving me or is it limiting me? Great question to ask here, especially when we're looking to break free. This is important because, again, we all live in a box. We're conditioned that way. The third one is give yourself permission to be fluid, flexible. I can be very rigid. I may come across like, hey, yeah. I can be a stickler. I can be mercurial, quirky. I can be rigid. When I'm like, hey, I have something set in my mind. It's like, yo, I want it to be that way. One of the things that's helped me is learning to be flexible. Learning to instead of these expectations, I've embraced adaptability of self-awareness. And the self-awareness has been some of those questions like, hey, where's my mind? Like, what's the limitation here? Does this box serve me? All these different things help me become more self-aware. The number 4 one is set standards, not expectations. This right here, God, this is a good one right here. Okay. Because standards, I was thinking about standards and now I was thinking about the wording. I like agreements better. And both work, right? But when we set standards instead of expectations, now I hold myself to internal values, right? My standards, but detached from assumptions about how things are supposed to be or how they have to be. So this is something very important for us to really look at. And listen, drop a comment, like or what have you. Drop a comment. What's an expectation you struggle with, whether from yourself or from others? Now, listen, if you don't want to if you want to drop a comment because you're like, Paul, this is a little uncomfortable here. Okay, cool. Write it in your journal, hook it up. You're good to go. All right, hook it up. Now, the final thought for this before I wrap up, and I'm already over my 12 minutes, but expectations can create conflict, limit our identity, and hold us back. The key is recognizing them, questioning them, choosing standards that align with who you truly are. All right. Listen, thank you all for being a part of this. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Damn sure know I appreciate you. And listen, you know already, and in case you don't know, I have a book out right now called Heal.Thy.Man Method. I appreciate you all. I appreciate you all. I damn sure appreciate you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, share, subscribe. And hey, listen, your boy's here. I appreciate you so much. I can say that all day. Thank you. Until next Sunday, I'm out. Leave a comment if you have any questions or thoughts on this, and I'll get back to you. Peace, everybody. Peace.